Where are we at? Kevin, are we?
Yeah, we're live. I'm just running on that one spoke.
We're live on the live stream. Yeah. Oh wow! I just heard that we're live on the live stream. So thank you, those on the live stream. Thank you for your patience. We're here. Thank you for being here. It's so good to see you all. It's really good to be in a room with y'all. I don't know, at some point that'll like get tired saying that, but actually I still really feel it, so I'm gonna keep saying it. Super excited for this night. Thank you to Beauty Supply for allowing us to use this excellent space, and Kevin Lowe for running our live stream. And I'm really excited for this reading. Jacob and Diane, there's Diane, Jacob's around, and we're going to have Sophia Dahlin introduce Jacob. Sophie will be reading for SPT in a couple of months, so check that out, as well as our other events coming up. And then Jacob will read, and then Jacob will introduce Diane, and then Diane will read. We won't take any breaks in the middle. We'll just go right through. Thanks again for being here. We have help yourself to water if you're thirsty in the kitchen in the back. Bathrooms are out there. There's some books for sale or for taking. And yeah, let's get to it. Thanks.
Hello. Oh, should I? Mask on? Yeah. I got like every booster. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Maybe I can. Okay, cool. Hi. Hello. Happened, fam. I'm so excited to be here introducing Jacob Kahn, who is a poet and editor living in Oakland, California. Many of us here probably first met Jacob at Wolfman Books, the bookstore, small press, and community arts hub in downtown Oakland, where he worked from 2016 to 2020 as managing editor, curator, and bookseller. Jacob's welcoming presence and wholehearted engagement in poetry and art community made downtown Oakland feel like the center of the world. I covered a few of his shifts, and the looks of disappointment on the faces of regulars who had anticipated a chat with him at the counter and saw me instead were truly offensive. I mean, they were truly a testament to his generous attention. Alan. These days, Jacob works as a freelance grant writer and copy editor and is a library aide at the Berkeley Public Library. He's also an editor of the poetry chapbook press Eyelet, which we co-founded in 2019, and he's soon to be host of our new reading series, which is also called Eyelet, but spelled differently. That's going to host its first reading April 19th with Steve Worth, Camille Roy, and Claire Grossman. Jacob is the author of Mine Eclogue, forthcoming from Roof Books in 2022. The chapbooks A Is For Aegis, Doublecross Press, Mine Eclogue also, Dirty Swan Projects, and A Circuit of Yields, Wolfman Books. And you can also find his writing in Salones de Belleza, the Beauty Salons with Gato Negro Editiones / Wolfman Books, and Lana Turner 12, and Grama, and Mirage 5, Periodical, and Full Stop Quarterly. And you should read as much of it as you can get your hands on, especially Mine Eclogue when it's out, because Jacob Kahn is an exquisite writer. A dizzying turner of phrases, like a shepherd, absolutely hypnotizing and hypnotized by his flock in the field, describing their neighborly rotations, like senses were invented by the shepherd. I won't quote him more than that because I don't want to steal the gasps. I'll just say that I value Jacob's work for their lyrical density, by which I think I mean lots of sound and lots to look at and lots to be and be undone by. For even on the page, there are gasps between his lines. You drop through Jacob's poems easy like a water slide, but you'll have to climb back up the slipperiest spout to understand them. There's no ladder. But do it. Reread him. Don't get lost in the sublime noise, the pink and teal flashes. It's worth tracking his addled syntax, his settings so groundedly now and Oakland. Speaking of groundedly now in Oakland, Yeah. His setting so groundedly now and Oakland tell you slip into the sped-up dawn of something ancient. His most beautiful vocab gapping to reveal his grossest meanings. Constipation. Sex with eggs, maybe? The images are slippery because he's capable of tracing convex shapes in concave space. And just try to track that eye flagging throughout the poems, but who or what it is endlessly leaps and billows. I'm just saying he's a beautiful writer. And what a joy to hear him read this side of the mic. Please put your hands together for Jacob Kahn.
Aw, thanks, Sophie. Love you. I realized since the last time I read in public that my eyesight has gotten significantly worse. So now I need to wear glasses, which I'm excited about. Yeah, thank you. Got some thank yous. Thank you to Sophie. You're a wonderful collaborator. I feel blessed. Thanks to Sid. You're doing amazing work with SBT. I really, yeah. It's such a historical institution, and to see firsthand, to get to work with you a little bit on it and see firsthand the effort you're putting in and the commitment is pretty outstanding, and we're all really grateful. Thanks to Beauty Supply, Justin. Thank you for hosting us on such short notice and for being here, and for your friendship for over a decade now. Thanks to Diane. I'm excited to read with you. This is going to be fun. And then I do have this new chapbook, A Is For Aegis. So thanks to Anna Gerten-Wachter, MC Highland, and Jeff Peterson, who made it. It's pretty outstandingly beautiful, at least in my estimation. Letterpress is amazing. And to Caitlin Tella, you should check out her chapbook on the other side. I think that's about it for now. Happy birthday to Jamie Townsend, who's not here. And thank you for the shirt. Oh, and hi everyone if you're on the live stream. What is the seed grail? It's how all my poems start. Increasing tenets, provisional entries, quiet removal of the root that otherwise confines this nth to fields where it nests. A Snickers wrapper blows through the grass. Recognize it? To flip the pancake or to fold it. To shift mitigation. My sense is he wants to avoid the subject and pedals through birch to a broad and semiotic trench. Suffice we notice the heat of the air, the coolness of the surface, but nothing gnomic, no bird with a crest. Ragweed discourages begonia. Regulators come to paradise. Sprigs of lavender, lockets of hair, stuff nobody's sesames, quite like the super rich. 'Twas my sweat on Proctor's brow, tossing bread to the birds at the lake. Fallacy entails a dampened future. Introspection has a limit. I follow the courageous example of the satellite. I'm not one to enter the valley twice. In the dream, an owl planted in the sea, a hill had thought, moving cups into place, bro, will kill us all. The widgeon in cattails, the carbon in karst. I refuse the spinal transfer of alternative fact. Dream of the substance nobody else can. Bro, will kill us both. Telos is a feature. Credible breakage at the system's apex, deleting lines at a time. I detect ilex, lies, sound of the wings, trollop, and signs to dissuade. Every afternoon, my neighbor hits the bag. Models skew in ring central time. This morning, there came to Aachen a curious sect who flooded the streets in Liege, in Utrecht, during the plague. They danced until they fell from exhaustion, right next to their bodies of their friends. They called this Tarantism, or St. John's dance. Don't you think reminiscent of Duncan? Lovely their feet pound the green solid meadow. Lovely join we to dance green to the meadow. Cassandra says, if I can't get tested, at least I can add myself to the numbers. Her idea being myth, after many corrections. The tart cherry lozenge, lying down to piss in the shower, carrying the splintery bones of Pinocchio in soft leathery bag. And light from the train window flashes off your phone. Telos is a feature. Tricks are for kids. That's stupid. That's really dumb. A is for Aegis. Each day at dawn, I put the discolored buds in my ears. I meander the pathways, perceive the daemon, trying to lure the cat down the stairs with a frayed orange thread. And so the morbid fantasy persists, as though finding empty seats in a darkened theater, sitting down to watch, amongst the difficult perfumes, the history of strife and the history of pleasure, then loaf nearby just to pet the inconsolable mare. On the trail, the lady said, "You looked so pretty in your pink hat against the poppies from a half-mile away." Well, what about now? Hole where the hoof plod, gap where the rent went. A is for Aegis, B for bare sterns. With each plunge of the rig into sworn-off waters, I prep the console, I sample the gels. Suckling weevil of fallible gains, integrating the pole with the voter, osier and ichor, starburst, fingerling. Don't forget the vanilla soy cream. In Virgil, there is an understanding this kind of lyric continuity is the provision of militaries. Frogs deep in a throng of nettle. Do you refer to the repugnance of your forebears in the past or the present? Do you prefer treaty and breach or the attachment of writers? In my dream, Kevin told me to read He Is Your Saturn, a poem by John Wieners that, as far as I can tell, does not exist. All I know, he said, look for the poem that ends, Bambino, your flute is safe with me. Spoon-fed worldview for Jean Day. Interest accrues in the spectrum rental like a chill ooze or cash that comes out of the eye. Speaking of which, the spectrum rental, whatever, I've been really obsessed with all the, for the last, when I worked downtown, there's all these buildings that were going up and they all have really absurd, abstract names. And as I was driving back down here, I was reminded of that again. There's like the, oh God, I forget something annex, the like Douglas annex and the spectrum rental. It's so annoying. Interest accrues in the spectrum rental like a chill ooze or cash that comes out of the eye. Listing through the undertow, I ate my brownie and I ate Karen's. Treats I did find in the freezer and you were probably saving for greater occasions. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, and so cold. then washed our dishes and got maybe as high as you can get, spawning a trail of synonyms, a creek beneath Kaiser, John Waters in Mosswood. It crosses my mind, a liquor called Paradigm, to drink and delight at the lazy edges of romance in hellish climate against blessed backdrop of dross doctrine and weakness through vapor, the hum of a fridge, cogito in fine shape. I punch gaps in the nautical. I dream of a book called People on the Plane Without Children. My friend might have written Any Cop Worth His Salt, Independent of the Lab, Insincere Bitterness, 1989, Fall of Rome, A Silent Atrium, Forfending Toxic Accrual, It's Now or Never, Bloated Conch, Buy Stock or Sink in Liquid Waste, Ambient Rudder, Why Not Mesh Beach and Boardwalk, Load Nash in the Louvre. City Lights. Joan Murray, Drafts and Fragments. Norma's new book. Swedish songs translated to English. Someone yelling, "No signal," in the middle of the road. A bright yellow bird gets crushed by a lift. Maybe it happens once a month. You leave your lair beneath thickening clouds and harrowing leaves to feel the friction of the choices you've made, to conspire or follow. Choices that lead to notice of removal or approval, way, way out in all this chromatic sun, or when it was behind clouds, an everlasting thought. It's like the troubadours say, richer tunes bring greater follies. And my brother sends me pictures of his dog as she slowly starts taking up more of the frame. The mockingbird yapping and the persistent wind, like a misshapen wave, prone to inquiry, pours down know-how, never ending. Our boss told Ben, conditions melt into assignation song. Look up Speenhamland subsidies. Send how to test splitter. This one has an epigraph from Alan Bernheimer. It says, the field needs a window. It's called Rapidly Reversible Tattoo. There I was, learning to work it, hushing the stigmas, salvaging hope as a dialogue, as recently dissected, to feed the needs of the jolted. When you leak it, you know. Salvaging stacks as a dialogue, tending the desiderata with heirloom eyes, in equal parts level-headedness and privy onus, afloat on the yuba, the kind of pitching that yields to fielding. And there I was, casually addled, on any bench, salvaging rates as a dialogue. As recently as yesterday, was that flake, had my lunch near shores. Okay, I'm going to read a few newer ones that are not in the chapbook. Thanks everyone for coming. It's really fun to be in the same room. This feels like a family reunion. Okay, I'm not really sure about this one yet, but I'll give it a try. Allegory of Pragmatism. Want me to tell you about the collage I'm making? One giant walnut with a child behind it. His fingers oozing green jello onto the Golden Gate skyline. The photo from a book by Richard Misrach, Berkeley chronicler of clouds, in land of Little B and Pharaoh Sanders, Bayer Pharmaceuticals. And above it, serif ghee cut out from a Trader Joe's coupon book. My slice of market apocrypha, meant to soothe then alarm, like a burgeoning conscience. Can you keep a secret? At first, soothe meant to see truth before it became to assure someone that what you are seeing is true. Today, my boss told me he's seen it all. By this, he means the idea of therapy change. I guess someone brought in a rat and said it was for emotional support. Then someone else brought in a parrot. When orthodoxy widens, does the world accept it? Banana in the shape of a kangaroo, with her front legs tucked and her back outstretched in her sleep. Like Christopher Smart, gazing upon decadent Jeffrey, I turn from brazen god to papier-mâché form and melt into the couch. An allegory of what? Pragmatism? Squinting slightly, perhaps from staring long into a mirror, the library book says of Jan van Eyck, in the portrait many think is him wearing a red headdress, because in his Arnolfini portrait, the painter appears in similar garb in a convex mirror on the room's far wall, a semi-blur in a wedding portrait for a merchant of Bruges. This is a century before Parmigianino's more famous To Poets rendition, and the author says small dogs here represent fidelity. Hence the name Fido, I suppose. Okay. I'll read a few more cat poems and be done. Earth. Banana tells me to rub her back when I get to the toilet. She sits on my foot and sniffs the trash. Mostly floss, hair, data about me and Karin. Evolving subtext. In the closet, the crate we brought her here in. Broadcast doves at the end of day, barely comprehensible, like magnets snapping onto a video game console. My teacher Denise said every tree is its own neighborhood. The baby, Emily said, is 2 days old and still nameless. Maybe Oprah was acting, but she did seem really perplexed. On behalf of all Americans, she kept asking, who? Who? This need to crown, with its suspiciously unifying logic. Is it unique to us here on Earth? I love when kids say it with an F, ERF. Okay. Nothing makes me sing. Dogs smell crotch and cops sell drugs. Dubs don't win, but dad still cries. Nothing makes me sing. Sign of the times. A smile reveals more of the rind. Gaps get larger. Gargoyles contain channels. Passage of a Honda through dealership window into the streaked, divisive red of night. Clean the cat litter with my mask on. Don't need any more brainworms. Lays the kitty on her recliner. Let the wizards charm each other. Okay. Thanks, you guys. Now it's my pleasure. I'm just going to transition right into it. So, it is an honor to be introducing my friend, mentor, and one-time housemate, Diane Ward, for Small Press Traffic's High Dawn reading series. Diane Ward is a unique figure, or node, as she'd probably prefer to be called, in 20th and 21st century American poetry. She has been an active presence for decades across a number of urban poetry and multidisciplinary art scenes. In her hometown, D.C. in the 70s and early 80s, New York City throughout the 80s, L.A. in the 90s and 2000s, until recently when she moved up here to the Bay Area. In poetry, she is also a designer, typesetter, and editor. Ward was an early designer for Roof Books, curated a season of the Erin reading series, or what is now Segway, with Alan Davies, co-edited with Phyllis Rosenzweig the magazine Primary Writing, and was a typesetter and helped run the Beyond Baroque Art Center in LA. An affiliate of so many, an active participant in so much. At the same time, Ward has eschewed the bounds of schools and movements, of poetry persona, and the totalizing urge for perpetual output. Quote, maybe a moment is not relevant any longer, she writes in a conversation with the poets Jane Sprague and Tina DeRaw, and instead opted to engage through interdisciplinary experimentation, patient activation, and a genuine trust of her reader and care for her communities and habitats. Interdisciplinarity is central to her work. She has written, I believe interdisciplinary work offers an opportunity to defy the rationalization of one's interests, a narrowing of one's life, a grinding into characteristics, interests, a branding. Indeed, Ward's work is difficult to brand or characterize, a sign, I think, of its expansive attempts and composite successes. It comes in all forms and sizes: lyric poems, stanzaic series, performance instructions, visual poetry, discursive prose, poetic collage, and often many of these at once. In Los Angeles, Ward earned her PhD in geography, an interest that carries through all of her writing. Her approach is spatial, geared around accumulations, and she often writes topically, in direct response to flows and tides that change the systems around us, social uprisings, climate disasters, family crises, but with remarkably patient formulation, ethical clarity, and deep sensorial engagement. Her poetry is incremental, infrastructural, and diagnostic. You can sense the geographer at work. As both an ethic and a practice, Ward is dedicated to collaboration, and her published catalog bears this out. Even when she's flying solo, she considers her work a collaboration between sense context, my language palette, and the possible material form that writing can take. These collaborative opportunities, as she's fond of calling her poems, may fluctuate or fade, but her commitment to seeking collaborators out and engaging in new and changing ways does not. There is a spirit of dedicated rascalry pointed toward toppling those outmoded interwoven systems, class-encoded patriarchy, environmental racism, by focusing on the particulate matter, the pollutants that they produce. And there is a remedial urge animating even her most discursive experimentation. Communal care is the generative force in Diane's work, not only as a poet, but for so many of us, as a mentor and friend. Welcome, Diane Ward.
Wow, I mean, I'll never have to write again. That was so amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Sid, for making this happen, which, almost didn't happen, but I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to see everyone. I feel like I've never read before in my life because it's been so long. I don't know. Can you hear me? Is that better? Sorry. So I'm going to read something old and then a bunch of newer stuff. Okay. The old piece is, I decided to read it because it's like, I wrote it when my first son was born and when I was pregnant with him, because there are all these poet babies coming along now, and because I live in a house with a family that has a 4-month-old, and I'm surrounded by all that thought. So this is a piece called Crossing, and it is as old as my oldest son. And I'm only going to read parts of it because it would really take a long time to read the whole thing. But each of the sections has a 3-line title. Here we go. The first is thought bounded, rigid edges glued, this voice calls. Imagine doom partitioned off from this discharge, peripheral object slides away off, taunting the fringe. Never secured as never named, a view fixed in your reflection can't contain you. The utmost figure possesses no shoes but walks anyway, walking through the room, sliding along the chair, falling in conversation with your reflection, and touches you in all tenderness, serious. Prices get fixed, you remain, adamant in all this confident extremity. Pay yourself strict lip service. In articulation, desire commands utterance, words crawl to the surface. You are going to be a wheel someday, ringing the world in all its lace-like response, as it floats thoughtless, checking out the view, you. What you've created is strictly limit. You've contained the upper hand right up to the center, the ultimate tip. Indicate hands, grown slow in sound, crush itself. Speed marked by duration, bodies crammed in narrow into the night. Individual gestures so tight, left-handed forefinger raised painfully toward the upper lip, name delivered up and gone. I must have said this before. Face-to-face germination, deliver me from penmanship, many, many apertures. Dense deceleration, a gesture beyond sight, long, long suspension. Blaring in tedious silence, a flawless rift in the sound. Sleep without beat, reverberation felt inland and crammed into consciousness denotes reasonable damaged, unbroken desire. Any failure now has the tenor of natural selection. Now selection is pulped into crowded process. We wished we weren't true and tried to be deconsumed. Failure echoes continuity. Fate has it our fingers are intact, an arrhythmic crack. Pining parallels, coded by exclusion, opinion commanding should. With a start, we include outside within us, catch our hands drooping together, try again to languish, speak equivalents again and again. Our heads are equidistant over our heels. I knew you were panicked when I woke up amounting to the same thing. No flags wave disturbing the veneer of duplication, reverse duplication, crossing out omissions. His head pushed from inside, your hand from out. Of course, my voice is not. My refusal spewed out, silence evicted. We speak at points of intersection, mouth failures at domination, delicious overshadowing. We incorporate, our foot put down, running side by side. Burgeoning, compressed into speechless heads, wrapped around inner. I was going back heavy and high-mouthed, apologies proliferating, down in the hand over which the head bent, face plane darkened. Squeeze open without contradiction, increased condensing of the eyes, mute and intensified. A good thing, too, to loosen the definition of duality. In public, a confidential silence. It was jumbo relief at last. A beeline from apex to zenith and back again, all zenith to apex, stop. Shrouded in contrary enclosures, hand over your inside, now outside in stitches. To got you, to got me, to encircle the concealed, need all the hands we can get, the line of fire from two or more positions, crossing one another in all directions, outward from the middle or more. Privatize no place or sketch in an obliteration, surmount the frame, face to face. We are two emergencies, originate and fade. Avoiding the sound of a repeated I, we proceed to flourish hand in glove. No seconds when they're eating out of our hand. Chance combination, duplicity changes gradually in loudness, visibility. Having two units or members, we results in an origin. Conference calls, satellite to earth, eyeball to eyeball. What is sprung up and bounced off to sink away? Founder. Locked in mortal handfuls and declining at the end of public streets. Isolation appears haphazard, keeping an impersonal character. But I, myself, am found in pressing need, able to emanate urgent necessity. With our fingers overlapping in a double-dealing grid pattern, a startling circumstance is crosshatched. I see, I said, there's headway from here to you to there. In your life, figure, out on top beam, flows away home. An adverse pattern treated as tissue is traced along the lines of lifetime, fits and conflicts. Travel over the place containing our bodies, doubled bodies, engaged as the object of an action, you as the objects of multiple activities, the more up to your ears kind of atmosphere. Language is not yet the crosspiece in our positioning, no direction to our mutual eclipsing, shake hands, nod, silence. Silence limits existence beyond and out of our heads. There's a lot of food and human secretions stuck to me, and if there seems to be an abundance elsewhere, my habitat is a point of intersection, broadcasting. There is no flat distance afar, no hands off from where we are. Arrive scathed, sly way, fiercely. Collect all intervals crossing the placenta. In this direction, no longer alone, we face the music. We've come here to become present. I've hoped to be hurt, to lose, attacked with severe criticism, encompassed by its opposite at this point. Landed with all feet planted forward in furtive vicinity, community-based shared experiences and desires, common containment and lack of free rein. But freedom like gratis, like small packs of cigarettes, investments in profit and death, distributed on corners. Gives you a hint when this was written. There's something ferocious, unbridled as I place the petroleum-derivative shod foot in my ulcerated mouth. This is the shoe I thought I could afford. I'm not detached. Straight-grained light, neglect consistency, variety in actuality. Falsely attributed quotas argue in several clumps or classes, infant as opposed to infantry. Down in the mouth contrasted with feathery, undemanding diversity. The multiplicity of a dimmer switch's duration, no points of intersection or exclusion. Arrangement of our faces situated to save the fibers in our clothing. I'm absorbed in here. My body's a fragment of brief, unrelated performances. I'm at a loss as to how to be actively apathetic, dim. Hand in hand and mouthing the tangible denial, the links of repetition, so as to get to there, so as to pass from here, so as to eradicate the way. We stepped on, ground the air, dropped its water. With each footfall, a heart after my own heart. The infant will try to avoid a looming stimulus, hands thrown back to catch the earth. In the background, a stepping sound flashed on the TV. I was affixed firmly to my own turf, bookworm. The spirit, which spent itself in circles around my bulging middle ground, was wafting arrogance. There was no pride in the exhibition. We groveled head and shoulders above the rest. I failed to pronounce the silence. I was attributed to the slack, as in taken up, moistened and filled with lack of premeditation, at a stage or level of liquid over my head. Puncture-kissed bliss, my neighborhood, never get cut. Hold on, I'm going to skip this one and go to the next one. It's because it's long. Now violence travels, the thorough instep, afraid to don't. As males, their bodies oscillate about a lower point than do the bodies of females. The problem of being all ears and the fury of verbiage pressing down, lying crosswise, unable to come down, pure expectation, an out-and-out change in the field of view as we approach the door, rocking with the same movement as the human foot, rippling between the toes and the ankle. It's not for the faint-hearted to find the right direction. There are customs that forbid it, regulations documenting the forbidden. In honor of former, lifelong live, talk whisper, Make good, be bigger than one, and lead, be followed, or in conversation your name passes away. First mentioned lack of intention. To kiss, magnify the face form, so as almost to fill the field of view. Between all the life's works, there's head-to-head and a hankering for nourishment. Partially, it's to escape destruction, partially to reaffirm an animate existence. It's absolutely essential to keep one's eyes open so as to avoid collision. An intimate discourse uttered under the breath, to the ear droning, to the face hot air. Okay, so that's the old. And then I just have a few newer things I want to read. This is for my friend Jane Sprague, who's in Long Beach, in Los Angeles, Long Beach area. It's called The Occupation That Jane Built. How pissed are you right now? Hold still, bud, you're all binocular visioned. Both yours face the same way differently, and both mine don't act the same. These two are together, winding tighter, distorted by jars that can't deliver the goods, the map that doesn't depict, the tiger that gets us to today, again today, relaxed, black and white wound up, bent together, kind of fetal in a natural stress relief. Rent an allotment garden. Show up to fly. I feel the animals are scrunched into the frame, tense and ready to pounce, and yet they are the charismatic ones. That one, that first one's feet aren't on the ground. That second one's body is background and body. I'm depressing the shutter button, but I have a lot of knives, so I'm poised to pounce parallel to the ground, where all the dry leaves form vortices. Leatherman in my right hand, machete in my left. I close both eyes, shut down the binary vision, so what's left is a light source, a cat, the effigy of a black crow, and Jane, pissed off and laughing. This is for Sophie Yannicone, a friend of mine. It's called Love Pivots. Our opening, to dwell along involuntary tuning, one body's axle power, upended and delved, outspinning mere place of absence. You are not here, but this is the axis around which you revolve. We know we don't speak ourselves, but narrate as if we are the central rotation. A spindle frees its thread, wordless, displotted from our grasp, what we grasp, but it is all unanticipated wind's effect, whisper thrown back against itself, span around. I have a few poems that are things I've been working on for a while. I sort of think of them as the dress poems. This one's called The Dying Dress. Dying in the object world, cinched at the memory waste. I know its visual component is overwhelmed. We all know how a body feels. Someone who's gone now, without worry, without waste. Flown beyond it all, by the way, they hovered outside, no more language waste, only random, solid, primary, color gaze, leveled to wind around and around the same gut working on bodies, gunning to feel nothing, no waste, or misspellings in the silence. Edge drops off both ends, overlapping soundings embody the civic remains like air from a flat tire or a ring of smiles. Worn animal. Leopard skin cuffs. Pearl clasps hold them in place. Metal tooth zippers down their backs, elastic holds them in place. Fingers among the fur, snared and holding us, scraped skin linking body and ground. Encircled hands hold identity cards, look away sane. This dress is an animal symptom. Disaster appetite falls back, hangs from the horizontals where bone and muscle go, and color waves create a spot, a footprint clash, hemmed in all the struggle shades, hooked on the wilt and the rise up. Watch for cues that show what live out means and dissemble does. Clobber dress. Torn seems to mean the thread is chopped and the touching parts pull away, perched within the pocket. Out loud, all the hard copy photos gone, the locational data altered. Demo colored now, hanging by a thread, midair, buttoned or largely un. A heart stitched onto each sleeveless pocket, dressing in waves, light floats away. The use of illegibility, outside power, love rips into all the shapes, a squeeze on the spirit. Hand in pocket kept there, in habitation, never empty. What's so real transcends people, shedding life objects. No possible answer to, did they mean it? Not outliving out of pocket. It's undisguised outside. It attempts to simulate a surging pluck. Inside old, clouded breath, the atmosphere is yoky but equal, as the sum of all colors smacks of lifelike. Whatever story the line tells, the link will overpower the linked, and the connection will be the only echo to break inside the corners. This is Eyes and Tears. How to pull it on so it floats. I feel myself as thirst, not satisfying the where in here in relation to that. No loss without possession, squeezed into sound. Ping, flit, apparition, silent things blown far off to the right, plus a little more insightful. Look at me, the thing that can be thought, sublime and sublimated, held closely, taught to run down the time. Without a level, I slip down and out in relation to, refreshed by, dark dream loss. Nothing comes out an open mouth, not first drawn up behind the teeth. This has a quote from Marcella Durand, which is this: I am boiling fire held by cool skin. It's called Body Gone. For a long time, wandering in no man's land, suckling lights dimmed, I could feel fondness drain from inside out, the marrow that determines and defies the armature, and there's no center, no absolute in this wilderness where wild lies behind today's mask of time being. Tongue curls towards itself and presses against the roof, which gives way to the word no one sees, no one hears. Lice, that's the word. Clothing as anti-mask, identity billboard, can't afford it, don't show it, won't broadcast it, sun as new and old every morning, up for the chance to work with all that stuff for another day. This is called Down in the Think Tank of Love, and the Think Tank of Love is a bell hooks phrase. Okay. Please keep the judgment for your records in a safe place. Option 1, you can dispute my understanding. You cannot get angry. You did say, made you happy. The amount was, if you scream at me, this wire was processed in error. If either of us has money, no need after lottery, suggestions, not promises, full as required by law. Neither party can force, thereafter either party can force. Trying to wade through, we haven't addressed. I'm not being, if I in fact maintain it. The sooner you see this, the sooner. Not sure how easy. Anyway, we discussed the following. Today, the actual returns, a loss we can claim together. My check has not been cashed. Do we know for a fact? Did it get lost? You said you would try, remains miserable as ever. How should we, if you find it impossible, without injuring the other? Conflict in my mind. I owe you. Debt on my side, any on yours. I can't be your desire. The meat to the letter repeating. We both feel bad, sorry, squandered. I'm just completely cannot be you. I feel I'm on the cusp. By nature, I intend the hurt that is not to dwell, how to go, dissolving, suddenly very fast, challenge to keep, to figure out, not connected to that, but like meditation, things manifest, the mirror, the words presented as other, as something within the city of languages, no representation, nothing missed. Let's see. I think I'll skip this one. This is for Sid Stady, where I find food that's not there when I'm hungry. Okay, I still owe you, Sid, something, but this isn't it. This is something else. Where I find food that's not there when I'm hungry. Those that are bruised, constricted by rotting peels, the headstrong that can only eat that, head tired whose brains form images of something fat, oily, good, back in the corner there, inside the town fridge that's been smashed. Wispy street vendor steals landlady's tomatoes, and she's really pissed off. What barrier, what fence, what deterrent could erase the wispy, whose logic brings the fruit to the curb to let it perform its rot? All these images can be shut out with science. Then science opens one eye. It's sticky and unconvinced. It's old but still edible. You don't deserve nouns since your income is so low, but you can occupy the conjunctions that conjoin. Service on big dishes where everyone eats something. No one eats everything. No one eats nothing. Non-allotted and not sato. It's all too much. Even each piece is too much. This is your hand, its fingers, your mouth, its tongue, your path mulched and ready for decay. So I just have two more, and then I'm done. This is for Jocelyn Seidenberg. It's called Pollination by Wind and Water. Large numbers cluster on elevated branches. Clouds dry up there. Pollen wafts. There is a stigma in the air. I said more then than I say now. Notoriously unpredictable, like wind. How can we count on the wind? That's the transport, the truck, the common mode, drifting like small, forgettable flowers, carrying large amounts of wasted pollen. Water will carry it away. Fire will enable the water. It's all dissemination ribbons. Weeds who form female flowers on long stalks to reach the water's surface and fly above the under male parts. Floating independently, tiny sailboats. Spores grow to attach to rocks and stay there, following the threads, tangled around what's swept up. And I'm going to finish with a piece called for Terrence Winch. He's a poet who's in Washington, D.C. It's called Things Fall Together. The roots ask the soil for distant pathways to water and minerals, collapse absence. The center cannot detach. Voice nodes are loosed, unsinkable fisheye loosed within ocean body. Containers disappear within containers. Attention depends on a swaying dexterity, turning throughout a feedback rotation. Simultaneously 5 o'clock when we hear our blue tears. Dents appear in the documents, entry by entry. The wind deconstructs to a stop motion hold. They deplane unexpectedly to sink into the soil. Self-love drowning in organic baubles, an unraveling back and forth, then drowning on the surface. Demystify the underfoot. See the deciduous trees for all the absent leaves, the defenestration of Prague, the defense of the coastline, full-throated decolorization of the rose-tinted, the swinging descent of the chariot, the declaration of literal instability, high tide lines, grown without love causation, leafless plants speed the mechanical accumulation of cotton balls, dissolution of the Soviet Union, the decolonization hand in the decarbonization hand, demonstrating crowd sourcefulness, mob depolarization. Words seep out like spitting images, and one image discharges itself. Departures from a parallel universe. Don't do this. Don't do this. Somewhere is held still as our holdout hope. A desert spoonful of sensibility, of a plasmic transformed into a product. Detachable ocean, completed, around us, what contains us, surges, delight in everything. Shadows slink below bottom. Depends if it's low risk, not low kill. Again and over again, as ex-dependents, we gaze at the remote and hard to influence. Centuries of waves, sounds as effects. No sound depicts the universal, but the effects of warring, the shift from nightmare to silence, between the indoors and the online. At least the ear touches the intimate demotion of Pluto, not gone, stillborn, in fact, in the bracketed past. Thanks.
You know, I was a little frazzled at the beginning of this reading. And it's not always easy to listen when you're like a host, but Jacob and Diane really brought me back into this space and into the room, so thank you. Thank you. Poetry works. And I'm really grateful. And also for all of you for being here. So thanks. Have a good night.